Today in the Gospel reading we hear of a truly extraordinary thing. And it's one of those things that made the name of the Lord spread throughout the whole of the area in which he lived. What happened was this. He, with quite a group of other people, walking to this small town called Nain, come across a funeral procession coming out of the city. It's of a young man, and his mother is a widow, and she's weeping and wailing. Now, the death of any child is a terrible, dreadful thing for a parent. In this particular case, though, it was worse. It was her only son, and in those days that would also mean that she would now be destitute. There'd be nobody to look after her, because she, having been made a widow, would now have been being looked after by this son of hers. And now everything was lost. Probably the son had died during the day, because within Judaism, as soon as you die, hopefully by the time the sun sets, you are taken out of the grave. So here we have a woman in the very first throes of that dreadful bereavement. Her son has died, and her future looks entirely black and bleak. And then along comes Christ. He's walking with this band of disciples, and he does a truly astonishing thing. He tells her, first of all, to stop crying. And that's not because he didn't realize the depths of her suffering. He knew very well what it was like to have somebody die. We know that because when Lazarus died, the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. So it wasn't to do with that. The reason why she could stop crying now was because life had arrived. Because obviously Christ our God is the bestower of life. He is life itself. Wherever he is, there is life there. So he comes and he does another extraordinary thing. He takes out his hand, he puts it onto the coffin, onto the bier. It would be an open bier, an open coffin, probably quite shallow, with the body of this man lying on it, ready for burial. And Jesus stops, he puts his hand on there, and that in Judaism would have made him unclean. Nobody did that. You certainly would not do it if you didn't have to. So why did he do that? We don't know exactly, but what we do know is this, that since then we've not regarded death as being unclean and a disaster in the same way. Because the next thing that he does is he says to this young man, "Arise." And immediately he sits up in his coffin, and it says he begins to speak. It's a shame they haven't said what he said. He begins to speak. Why does he begin to speak? Well, the fathers tell us the reason why he begins to speak is so that we know that this is not a ghost. It's not an apparition. It's not some magic. This real person sits up in the coffin, and he really does speak. And immediately Jesus hands him to his mother. This is the second time that she has been given him. The first time was in his conception and birth. And now we have the second time. He's already been dead once, and now he's been raised back to life and returned back to his mother. So here we have a really remarkable miracle that takes place in that way. Why did Jesus do it? He did it because he is in fact life itself. It is natural to God to bring life out of death. It is natural for him to do this. Wherever God is, there isn't truly death. One of the things that we all know, if we've been involved in somebody's death, is that it seems to be profoundly unnatural. It seems a strange, unbelievable, and ridiculous thing to be happening. If you've known somebody, you've known their life, their vivacity, you've known their character and everything else, then to see them die, or to see them when they're dead, and all that has gone, we feel deep down, or even deep down, we know that this feels to be a very unnatural thing. And unnatural it is. And that's why it is that when the creator of everything that was came to that small village of Nain, and out came this woman with her dead son, he said to her, stop crying, because where death had been, life was about to come. One of the most profound miracles in the New Testament. The Lord touches him, the young man sits up, and he's returned to his mother. I suspect that from then onwards, his problems really began. Because if you've had a miracle like that, or any miracle happen to you, then you have to reassess your life. It has to start again. You have to say to yourself, why did this happen to me? What shall I do with the time that is left to me now? So, as we think about the parts of our lives that feel dead, maybe people who are dead, maybe parts of ourselves that feel as if they're dying, things that have gone wrong within us, things that are not good. We need to remember this particular miracle where the Lord stretched out his hand right onto the problem that was there, death itself. And instead of death, suddenly you had life there instead. And he can do exactly the same for every part of your character, every part of your being, and every part of your life. For whatever has gone wrong, Christ can heal. Amen.